Prior to this week, I didn't know traits were heritable at all, really, but after reading many studies on my own, I found that it was the case in almost all of them that traits were found to be very heritable. I wanted to know just how heritable traits were, so I had my grandparents, my parents, and my sister all take the Big Five, or the five-factor model test from the first video lecture. The main thing I wanted to find out was, do children share more traits? Excuse me. Do children share more traits with the parent that they share a gender with? So me and my dad, my mom and my sister, my dad and his dad, things like that. I found that gender did play a strong role in the heritability of traits. I found that me and my dad's scores were more similar than me and my mother's scores. My sister's scores were very different from both of my parents, so there wasn't a correlation there. In terms of my parents and their parents, they were both very different, my parents, from their parents. However, I did find that my dad's scores were more closely aligned with his father's scores, and as was the case with my mother and her mother. A study that kind of backs this up is one that I found in the National Library of Medicine, which said that gender did play a very strong role in the heritability of traits, except for openness of experience, which I also found to be the most heritable, no matter what gender it was being passed from. I think that this study that I did was obviously on the heritability of traits, but I think that I agree more with John Locke in the sense that I think we're all born with clean slates. I think that we're not necessarily genetically predisposed to act any sort of way. I think that I am very similar to my father, and my sister is pretty similar to my mother, but I think that, like I said, we're not predisposed to act this way. I think that our parents are raising us in the way that they would have had themselves raised, and they're raising us to prioritize the things that they find important. So it's not necessarily that they're passing these traits down, it's that they're instilling them within us, which I think is different. I think that I do find things important because they have instilled them into me, but I think that I've also had to develop my own self-concept and find out the things that I find important and the things that I prioritize, which are definitely different from my parents. So I think that while there is a lot to be said about the heritability of traits, I think that we determine more of our traits ourselves, and we develop our self-concept more independently than we do genetically.